creator of the NRC brand, gives his insight and thoughts on the world of comic books, gaming, tech, and media industries as the host of Neo Reality Collective. Experience a slew of regular episodes covering news and pop culture, along with reviews and editorial pieces showcasing the best and worst of our ever-expanding multimedia world.
Welcome everyone to Neo Reality Collective. I am your host, Eric Brown. So if I sound all nasally and all that, it's because I've been dealing with a sore throat and a little bit of cold over the last week, which is why I have not updated, which is why I did not have an updated episode out. But I'm back now. I'm feeling a little bit better, and I think I can make it through this. Let's see. Dead Space 1 remake, the game that everyone loves and praised to no end, is not getting its sequel. They have shut down the Dead Space 2 remake rumors, revealing there was a report going around that there was going to be a Dead Space 2 remake that was in development before being canceled because the Dead Space remake did not sell expectations, because of course it didn't, and we are all miserable for it. So there were people that wanted to see Dead Space 2 remake, but apparently despite being one of the best-selling games in 2023 of January when it came out, apparently there's been conflicting reports that it was considered to have done well, but there were other reports that were suggested it missed the expectations. And there was a rumor that EA had shelved the Dead Space 2 remake, but EA spokesperson came out saying there's no validity to the story, saying that Motive has been on other projects for nearly a year. Personally, I've never played the Dead Space franchise. I've always heard the praise it gets, but you know how it killed the last franchise, how it killed the franchise with trying to make it a franchise before it could really dip its toes into that universe, like with an animated spin-off. There was Dead Space 2, which was popular, but Dead Space 3 kind of killed the franchise. And then when the people wanted Dead Space 4, they said, well, you should have bought the other game, therefore you can't have it. And yeah, EA is terrible, as we all know. Meanwhile, during CinemaCon earlier this month, James Gunn's Superman logo was unveiled. It's actually pretty cool. It's based off the Kingdom Come logo, which is a choice. Now, I'm not complaining that it's bad. It's actually pretty good. It's just, people were wondering, would it make sense to have it do a Kingdom Come story then, instead of having Superman change the logo, instead of having the traditional logo he's usually known for when he's a younger guy? But yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on regarding James Gunn's DCU and Superman. Cut out the Legacy title, which honestly I think that should be saved for a third movie if they get to it. But with how bloated the Superman movie is with all these characters, yeah, let's just hope this is a good movie. Meanwhile, it's been 2 years since the announcement of Kingdom Hearts 4. And that's it. Basically, people are pining for an update on it. And yeah, Square Enix hasn't made an official announcement about the game since the big unveiling they did a few years back. And some joke that they thought it was a fever dream, that they just never really saw it because yeah. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 has been over 5 years old after its reveal trailer, and I think it's also added to the fact that, well, Noruma has been busy with Final Fantasy VII Trilogy Remake, with Remake and Rebirth, and they're working on another one, and they're hoping to get it out in time, but because, well, it's not selling as well as they have thought, Rebirth, I'm worried how the third game will end everything, and how if Square Enix might cut corners more so. Meanwhile, Blizzard Games is set to return to China under new agreement with NetEase, as part of their in the summer of 2024 after being gone for a year and a half off the market. Additionally, Microsoft, which now owns Blizzard, and NetEase have entered another separate agreement to bring NetEase games to Xbox and other platforms. So, after the NetEase and Blizzard deal was canned in January 2023, because fans kind of got taken off the servers and everything, it just sucked all around, and both companies reached a new deal, and the deal will include all the games that Chinese players had access to from the previous agreement, including ones like Overwatch, Diablo, and World of Warcraft. And yeah, Phil Spencer gave out a tweet saying, "Thanks to the incredible work done by Blizzard Entertainment East to renew their commitment to players, we will soon welcome back millions of community members in China to our Blizzard universes. This is exciting for everyone at Blizzard, Xbox, and for players everywhere. Read more at this link below." And my other thing is, can you actually fix Overwatch 2? You own the company now, and Bobby Kotick is gone. Can you please fix this? Meanwhile, Star Wars Outlaw released their trailer during that same time frame, but it's been getting a lot of backlash because of the pre-order deluxe ultra super special ultra mega duper duper edition locking out content and a whole bunch of other stuff. But my other gripe is that it's featuring the character Lady Kira from Emilia Clarke's character from Solo. I just have one question, and this is an important one. So, in the game, there's a Jabba the Hutt mission that is locked behind the DLC payment wall with the special editions, which sucks, and it's really annoying that Ubisoft did this. But you see Jabba the Hutt has Han Solo in his thing, so unless this is like an epilogue, but if it's taking place at the same time, then why is Lady Kira there? Because see this problem Disney seems to doesn't really care about the comics, because Lady Kira has been kind of doing her own thing where she waged a big war against the Empire and caused disorder and dismay throughout the galaxy through the criminal underworld. And yeah, Crimson Dawn fell apart in the events of Hidden Empire, a comic that came out, quite frankly, I think a year or so back. And now you're telling me that she's coming back, but if the timeline's correct, then see the problem here? The continuity isn't making any sense anymore. Disney just threw up their hands and said, "We don't care." Also, Emilia Clarke, the person who played Lady Kira in the Solo movie, is not coming back to voice the character. Yeah, she's not portraying her, so, what was the point of that? It's just that continuity snarl I'm getting from this, but like, okay, I guess we just don't really care about the games, about the Star Wars continuity in Disney, because they clearly don't care. But yeah. Meanwhile, speaking of gaming, a modder turned a rare PlayStation 1 controller into a fully functioning handheld PlayStation. My God. So, yeah, apparently there was this rare PlayStation controller that kind of looked like a handheld, and they managed to this modder managed to fully function into a handheld PlayStation. And it's like, as reported by TechSport, modder Haruo Sato has posted about this functional PlayStation handheld, saying he had used the Taka Roulette controller, a rare officially licensed PlayStation controller released in the early 2000s. It was functional and had a color spin smacked at the top of the center of the peripheral. And in the images shown, Sato has made it into a contemporary device, swapping the spinner with a small LCD display and any LNR back triggers, USB-C charging, stereo speakers, a memory card slot, and a volume wheel. Since the form factor is too small to place PlayStation discs, Sato can play games like Resident Evil Survivor via a PlayStation 1 emulator. Sony, do you think you can hire this guy, or, Nintendo, because this guy clearly has a functioning brain to make a handheld device that doesn't look like it's powered badly? Come on, Nintendo Switch. Get us the super duper Switch next year, come on. Meanwhile, the new Joker sequel that's set to come out this year will not be a full-on musical, but music is an essential element. They released a trailer and all that showcasing the Harley Quinzel of this universe, the Harley Quinzel, and yeah. And they seem to be teasing in the trailer that Harley Quinn, who's portrayed by Lady Gaga, is actually a patient and not a psychiatrist who falls for the Joker and his manipulations and whatnot. But it is interesting where they go with this. Really is. Let some things go. I like how DC allows these experimental superhero films to be made on the side. It's kind of fun. Meanwhile, Avatar The Last Airbender arrived on Fortnite, so pain. I'm pretty sure there's like 100 different things. Like they only brought in that, like, apparently Aang might be included in an event pass later instead of being immediately purchased. But Katara, Toph, and Firebender Zuko are set to be in the game, along with the Avatar core characters who arrived on April 2nd, which makes me just think to myself, it's sort of weird that you're having Aang hold a gun and shoot people, and people already had a weirdness regarding Superman holding a gun and shooting people and killing them. I'm like, it's not that weird because Superman did have a kryptonite gun back in the 90s when he came back to fight an evil clone of himself. Okay, yeah, that was the whole thing. Yeah, it's actually very complicated. Meanwhile, EA has been insisting that yes, the Iron Man game that they've been working on for some time after adding developer Motive to the list of own studios working on the Battlefield franchise. Mo Studio General Manager Patrick Claus said a group of developers from the Montreal head-based Motive are joining Criterion, DICE, and Ripple Effect to continue unlocking the full potential of Battlefield. And I must remind you all, Iron Man was announced back in September 2022, and it would be the first of 3 Marvel games coming to the publisher of EA. And they were using Iron Man to be used with the Unreal Engine 5, and at the time, Iron Man was said to be Motive's focus after the well-received Dead Space remake came out earlier that year. And, well, after the layoffs happened, they decided to go ahead and move away from future licensed intellectual property, which made people question about Iron Man and the other planned games they were working on with Star Wars and Marvel, including a 3rd Jedi game, Black Panther, and yada yada. EA canceled the first-person shooter of Star Wars, which reportedly was going to be a Mandalorian-focused game, which not Din. It could probably 1313, or just a revamp of 1313 to fit the Disney continuity, which doesn't really care. However, there is a strategy game of Star Wars in development at Bit Reactor and produced by Respawn, and that survived. But yeah, they fired 670 people back in February, so screw you. Meanwhile, Zack Snyder reveals that he wants an extended cut of Sucker Punch, saying even the director's cut is not really the correct cut. And saying he has the footage already shot, they just need to let him put it together. Saying the only movie I would change is Sucker Punch because it never really got finished correctly. Even the director's cut is not really the correct cut. It's just an extended version. If I had a chance, I would fix that movie. I have the footage. They just need to let me put it together. We ask every now and again. We have to ask again. I think there has to be a window where no one's got the movie. And oh man, he's trying to release the Snyder Cut movement by having Sucker Punch get the correct cut. And I'm just like, oh god. Like, Zack Snyder's Justice League was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing, I believe, like, with all the circumstances surrounding it. But considering Rebel Moon hasn't been doing so well with people, except for the Snyder fans, yeah, it's still up and up. So for the last year and a half, there were word going around that Jon Snow was going to come back, Kit Harington was going to play the character again, and focus on a post Game of Thrones event, Jon Snow showing what he's doing. And series creator George R. R. Martin confirmed HBO was working on a Snow spinoff called Snow. And according to Martin, Harington was developing the series with his own team, speaking with Screen Rant to promote his new film, Blood for Dust, which releases in theaters and on digital back on April 19th. Harington revealed the spin-off series finally on the shelf, citing the team's challenge to craft the right story as the cause. Saying it's off the table, but we all couldn't find the right story to tell that we were all excited about enough. So we decided to lay down the tools with it for the time being. There may be time in the future when we return to it, but at the moment, no, it's firmly on the shelf. And there was word back in 2022 that Harington hinted that his spin-off would focus on the character's struggle to overcome the past traumas of the heels of the season 8 finale, and potentially bringing back Daenerys Targaryen, considering where the dragon took her. Yeah. He's not in a good place. But yeah, Jon Snow is no longer getting a show anytime soon, and we'll have to wait until a new writer's room forms, probably. Honestly, I don't really know if I want to... Like, they would have to... Because not only do they have to make a character-focused story of Snow and after the events of the HBO Game of Thrones timeline, it would also have to contend with the fact that the Winds of Winter still hasn't been published yet. Come on, George R. R. Martin, can you just give us that? God damn it. But ignoring that part, there's also the fact that Snow would have to somehow justify everything that went down in Season 8 in order to make it work better. But it'd be pretty hard to find that kind of story to make sure it justifies everything that went down in Season 8. In the last 2 episodes especially. Meanwhile, the Sonic the Hedgehog producer wants the films to become Avenger levels events because with the shows like Knuckles and whatnot happening and supporting characters to death and really building them out in cool ways, the movies will focus on the larger cast of characters, more epic narrative, so they want to go ahead and basically build to an Avengers level event. And I'm just like, you cast Idris Elba is Knuckles, and you have casted Keanu Reeves as Shadow, making us get Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba together for the first time since Cyberpunk 2077, which is awesome, and I demand badassery to happen. And make a reference to Cyberpunk 2077 while you can. Meanwhile, Christopher Nolan had been pressured by his brother Jonathan Nolan because Christopher Nolan was initially hesitant to take on the project because he didn't want to become a superhero movie director. Especially with the fact that Jonathan Nolan's been on a crusade trying to bring back Westworld. I think Christopher Nolan could convince Warner Bros. If he went back. But, he didn't want to become a superhero director. Fine, he didn't want to do that. But because of how popular The Dark Knight is and how it's considered one of the best superhero movies ever, even though Robin never shows up in it, and I do not count the other guy showing up in Dark Knight Rises to be Robin, to be our famous Grayson, or Drake, or Todd, or any of these other characters. But that's just me. Meanwhile, June 2 announced an IMAX run extension with the cute Solar Eclipse themed poster. Remember the Solar Eclipse that for some reason science and facts have been taking a beating for the last few years? And it trended with the whole "my eyes are burning," and there was a spike in Google searches, and you lose your faith in humanity. Yeah. Well, Dune 2 announced that they had an IMAX run extension with the Solar Eclipse poster, which looks awesome. And yeah, I've been hearing a lot of positive reviews about it, hailing it as one of the best sequel films ever made, which is saying a lot. And Starfield has, and there's a mod that is being developed, that's been developed and being updated. But there's a big DLC sized mod for the 2023 Starfield space action RPG. that lets you create entire colonies, build mechs, and more. Hooray. Which makes me question why didn't they put that in the game. But anyways, this project is by modder Tank Girl 444, called TG's Galactic Colonies Expanse. The creator describes it as a new DLC-sized mod for the 2023 action game. The description touts that those who download it will be able to land any world and build their own empire. And saying how the mod took the momentum to craft, and that it expands on the previous mods that were aimed at improving and expanding the player home and building in Starfield. More importantly, it greatly expands the outpost mechanic, allowing players a more streamlined way to mine materials without having to create different outposts. The mod's description also includes that fully constructed buildings that are prefabricated and buildable. This includes iodomes, which allow players to plant a small piece of green on the desolate barren wasteland planets. Interestingly, the mod introduces a farming system where players can farm, craft, and sell fruits and veggies, and even allows you to have your own livestock. Along with an expansive farming system, the mod features a new workbench called a colony food printer, which adds new food items and recipes. Yet the thing that was found most interesting is bringing functional mechs into Starfield. Those who play Starfield are familiar with the events, mainly the Colony War, or will know the mechs have a place in the Starfield lore. And that Bethesda just puts that in there, but we couldn't use them because they were banned after the conclusion of the Colony War. So why put them in the game if we can't use them? Like, unless this is supposed to be with that upcoming DLC they're making, where they're going to bring them back, then fine. But if you just have them in there, and if the modder is able to make it functional, so then it's just so weird. Meanwhile, Saber Interactive CEO pulls back the curtain on joining and leaving Embracer. He gave this in a big interview, speaking to IGN, and yeah, I'm still waiting for my KOTOR remake, damn it. And the Fallout TV series had gotten renewed for a second season. Hooray, there was much rejoicing. I've actually watched the first episode, pretty good, and if I make a review about that, that's going to be probably later, but I'll just say what I did here makes me question certain things, but I'll get to that down the road. Meanwhile, Robert Downey Jr. reveals that he would happily return to the MCU, saying that the role chose him, and an interviewer Esquire spoke briefly about whether or not he'd be interested in going back. Happily, it's too integral to my part of my DNA, that role chose me. And look, I always say never ever bet against Kevin Feige. It is a losing bet. He's the house. He will always win. So, there were rumors going on that they would go ahead, that they were thinking about bringing back Robert Downey Jr. and other members of the Avengers back for a new film. But Feige had to come out and say that he never wants to match the undo Iron Man's death as it was shown in the 2019 Avengers Endgame. Which, that I understand, it just kind of makes this thing pointless if you did that. Like, there is the multiverse stuff they can do, but no, to be fair, here's the thing. You can still keep him dead. Why not just so that you have Ironheart in the series, why not just bring the AI stuff that they did when Tony Stark was, quote, in a coma and then revealed to be dead at the hands of Captain Marvel during Civil War 2, because everyone hates that story. Meanwhile, Dragon Dogma 2 mod let players silence insistent pawn characters. There's a lot of things that need to silence, so there's that. There was also weird rumors going around that Troy Baker was voicing the male protagonist from GTA 6. And he came out and said, no, that's not it. He also starred in Far Cry 4, Spider-Man Miles Morales, the upcoming Indiana Jones, The Great Circle, and more, and made clear he's not behind Jason, the GTA 6 male protagonist, but said he would appreciate fans thinking he is due to the amount of work and skill required for such a role. And he says, I want that guy to get the credit, whoever it is, for his work, because I'm sure it's going to be great, and the fact that people thought he was Troy Baker says to show how talented this guy could be, we'll see. Meanwhile, Microsoft is moving full speed ahead on the next-gen console for the Xbox. An internal email from President Sarah Bond revealed the email obtained by Windows Central and verified to be game owned by Microsoft also announced the formation of Game Preservation Team at Xbox. Yes! Game preservation is important. Meanwhile, James Mangold, Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi, will be co-written by House of Cards creator Biru Williamson. And considering how that show ended, probably not for the best. Look, I just want... Okay, so Dawn of the Jedi is the prequel story that takes place 25,000 years before the movie timeline fans know and love. So maybe it can work out. We could probably get the Force Wars on Typhon and all this other stuff going on. It'd be interesting to see that. We did get some comics and a book at the time before the reboot happened. So we'll see. I'm just worried how much broken continuity they'll do to the game. They'll do to the movie with breaking all the rules and whatnot. Meanwhile, Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian's publishing director calls game industry an avoidable fuck-up regarding the complex and avoidable nature of layoffs. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about that. We could talk about Hollywood even if we want, like how David Zaslav is increasing his paycheck and getting a big bonus because of all the cuts, the strikes and whatnot, and the tax write-offs that he screwed people over on. And it was never truly about the company debt. He just like squandered all that and wasted our time. So there was rumors that James Gunn's Superman film was going to feature a clone version of Clark Kent, which is the Ultraman from Earth 3. And yeah, James Gunn came out and says the primary protagonist of Superman is shockingly Superman, and says there's no fact on the clone idea, and it's not to say it's out of the question, but they could do that later, or we could just do Bizarro Superman down the road. But yeah, they have yet to see David Cornsweet's new suited up iconic of the red and blue outfit. People are still demanding it, and we still have a year and a half left to wait. So we'll see how Superman Legacy or Superman goes. Also, speaking of the Game of Thrones universe, there is said to be a prequel called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms based off the book of the Hedge Knight and the other stuff that George R. R. Martin wrote, has already casted their leads. Back when the Targaryens still hold the Iron Throne, but the memory of the last dragon has not yet passed from living memory. But it's the tale of Dunk and Egg. Yeah. And there was a report from HBO expressing interest in making A Knights of the Seven Kingdoms a 3-season show, which could be interesting. But right now they're focusing on House of the Dragon and trying to get everything else off the ground. Meanwhile, Disney has set Toy Story 5 and The Mandalorian Grogu release dates while delaying live-action Moana. Thank God. So, here's the release dates. Troy Aries, which is one of them, will debut on October 20th, 2025. Mandalorian and Grogu set for May 22nd, 2026. And Toy Story 5 will be June 19th, 2026. And Moana live action remake that didn't need to happen went from June 27, 2025 to July 10th, 2026. So yeah, there's that. But we have one last bit of news regarding the Star Wars universe, and that is the announcement of Tales of the Empire, which is a sequel to Tales of the Jedi, which is a name taken from the old lore of the old continuity, Tales of the Jedi. Yeah, it's confusing, I know. Tales of the Empire decided to go ahead and finally address former Jedi Padawan / probable Jedi Knight Barriss Offee after her whole bombing thing, and treason and trials and whatnot. And we're also going to get Nightsister Morgan Elsbeth, who was in the Mandalorian show. But yeah, Barriss Offee is back, and there might be a possibility she's the seventh sister from the Rebel series, which means Darth Maul kills her, which sucks. That kind of sucks if that's the route they're going for, because people did think Barriss Offee was in Rebel seasons 3 and seasons 2, but I don't want to hope for that, because then you'd be like, wait, then how come Ahsoka, who fought her several times, didn't seem to recognize her or even get a signature of her power of the Force? Like, wouldn't she have been able to recognize Barriss to some degree? But yeah, Barriss Offee is becoming a Grand Inquisitor, because of course. And we'll be seeing where that goes. But we also learned more about Morgan Elsbeth, because, well, once again, she is a victim of Palpatine's murdering of the Nightsisters. Seriously, are we going to just establish there was another tribe on the other side of the planet, like they did in the Legends continuity when they decided to slaughter them, and then they had to explain, oh, the Nightsisters that you got in the courtship of Princess Leia is actually from a different tribe that went to rebirth the species and the culture and whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, Barriss Offee's back, and there's blood for the first time in the series in the Star Wars animation departments, because she gets busted open at times. So we'll see how that goes. Oh man, it's pretty crazy. But that's all the time we have for today. I'll be having the next episode, hopefully next week or so, as I'll be off break from work, and hopefully when my nose and whatnot feels better. After that, we're going to take a brief break from producing episodes after the next episode to focus more back on the reviews, because I have not done that in months. We'll be seeing you all again next time. This is your host, Eric Brown of Neo Reality Entertainment, of Neo Reality Collective Pop Culture News Talk. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe to the content on YouTube, Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram if you want to get more notifications and updates. Enjoy this last outro and whatnot, and we'll see you all again next time. Take care.
And that was our latest edition of Neo Reality Collective. Be sure to follow and support NRE creator Eric Brown on Twitter and YouTube. Check the links in the description below, and we'll see you all next time.